Sorry, I got so carried away in the other role-playing game we were playing tonight. So that kind of made things start later for this one. So I'm so sorry to all of you.
Yeah, it was all Toby's fault. He was trying to kill us.
Well, that was the picked.
You were the picked. So, same thing. It got quite close.
After all the rain and after all the stress of the encounters you were having.
Jumping. As usual, if you are on the stream, please say hi, hello. I'll get water.
Yeah, I got. But yeah. Starting much later than usual. My fault. I'm so sorry. Killing is bad. Yes, it is. And, Rocky, of course, says that with a bit of humor.
Yeah, I keep getting below half hit points recently. Ever since I took on this path of magic.
Well, it doesn't
Magic
help.
is dangerous.
It doesn't help that everyone
expects me to do things.
And has not worn armor because of the damn storm.
Yeah.
But such is
the challenge. Bad
Yes.
weather for fighting, apparently. Like I said in the game, suddenly our Pendragon game felt like Ryutama. So I see a number of people on the stream. If you're here, say hi so that we know you're watching. Ooh, a lot of Facebook people. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
Not the people who were just in the game, because we all had to run away after. But it's okay. We'll keep things chill. Maybe you have other Saturday plans.
Mm-hmm.
Friday is really our prime time night. We super appreciate everybody who joined yesterday. That one also ran long.
Yeah, that was how long?
3 hours and 17 minutes based on the final stream count. So that was a fun session. It was a fun hangout. Admittedly, because alcohol was involved, so that kind of made things just keep going. Do we still have vodka?
Yes, we do.
Wow, that's surprising. I mean, I don't want now. I
believe we do still have.
I'm just asking in general.
I think we have a glass or 2 more glasses worth.
We should buy before next week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, stream count's gotten really weird because now I think I see no one.
Yeah, it's confusing, but there's more than one in each one. So
long is an understatement. Yes. Well, long can be fun. It's over. It's a bit overhyped, but it was still substantial.
But I guess, as we know, Saturdays do tend to get busy for other people. We might as well start.
No, we can wait another minute.
Okay.
It's we're still doing 5-minute warm up. Especially since we're late.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. Today was a tiring day for me. Today I had errands and stuff. And although I missed steps during the game. I missed 2 hours of steps.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But you did also have lots of steps outside. So
yeah,
hopefully that helps balance things out.
I'm still not at my... Oh my god, Cheese, is that true?
Hey, Cheese.
Hey, Cheese. How are you? It's been too long since we've last gamed.
That is true.
We hope you get to visit sometime.
And we hope that you all like the videos, if you can.
Oh yeah, it's the usual. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please DM, please send us photos.
Yeah. I guess in 1 minute, 9:30, we start.
Yeah, we'll start at 9:30.
I keep getting this trouble playing this video in the monitor.
Again, people do mention that Facebook has issues, but it's okay. Our comment integration is working again, so that's okay. What I don't have is stream count viewers. That keeps bugging out. So now it's 0 again. Even though obviously we have the likes of David and Cheese watching across the different platforms, and we super appreciate you being here today.
So today, we might as well start. This is Toby.
And this is Rock.
And if it's your first time here, welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the internet where we talk about anything we want.
This is completely unscripted and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us. We talk about everything and anything, random, live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you for joining us again. Tonight, we are spending the next 30 minutes or so talking about one of our favorite role-playing game systems.
Changeling. And Changeling is we're using the general term for it because actually there are like two main iterations of Changeling as an RPG. But they generally follow similar themes. So, how do you want to walk us through? I feel like we should have looked up who made the first one.
Yeah. This is we are very unprepared in covering this episode. We love the game a lot, but we are not that well versed when it comes to the specifics regarding the game. The game Changeling is split into two types. We have Changeling the Dreaming and we have Changeling the Lost. Changeling the Dreaming came out first. It was a game released by the World of it was a game that was part of the World of Darkness, or what people now call the original World of Darkness. Classic World of Darkness.
Yeah.
It was a different game compared to the other games of the World of Darkness line at that time, because while most of the games of the World of Darkness focused on the monster, that's what you were, vampires, werewolves, Changeling had you portray changelings, which are people who are human but have a face soul within them.
And interesting. First edition design credits lead, of course, with Mark Reynhagen, Sam Chup, Ian Lemke, Joshua Gabriel Timbrook. Oh, okay. So, but yeah, Mark Reynhagen. Interesting.
So, Changeling is an amazing game because even when it first came out, many people were divided as to how to feel about it because it was a very colorful game.
It didn't feel dark, especially Changeling the Dreaming. It doesn't feel that dark because it's a bunch of fairy-touched, fairy-like, fairy-influenced creatures trying to survive modern life, so to speak.
So let's try to break it down in more understandable elements.
Okay.
By playing a Changeling, the type of stories that you would end up going through would be quite individual, but would always revolve around certain themes. And among those themes would be the search for belongingness. Do you celebrate your mortal side more and try to live a normal life and slowly watch your face side die?
Yeah.
Or do you embrace the face side wherein you go on adventures and you find ways to explore the realms beyond the normal world and you hunt chimera and other strange monsters? But then by embracing this side, you're eroding your mortal side to the point that people start thinking you're being mad, or you start acting in ways that are seen by most people as mad. So it is this delicate balance of finding how to live both or celebrate one, even at the risk of entirely losing the other.
And I really like that interplay because, like the vampire, for example, what was the initial one? Masquerade.
Vampire the Masquerade.
So for vampire, then it's the struggle of you're balancing your humanity versus your vampiric nature, and the sort of more powerful, darker stuff you do, the less human you become, and that kind of instinctively feels like a bad thing. Like you are going to clutch onto your humanity as much as you can to avoid going full dark, full beast. But then Changeling, it really felt more like a more even-handed choice. Like, do you really want to embrace mundanity and banality and just be a regular person? Or do you want to fully explore your Changeling side? But it means giving up your human side. It means wanting to live in the fairylands more and kind of escaping everything. And that dichotomy is a truly unique struggle because one doesn't necessarily feel worse than the other, depending on the circumstances, but it manifests very strangely. Like a person who is more and more fairy may still have moments in times in the real world, and will thus be doing they look like the crazy people on the street, talking to themselves, mumbling, doing maybe repetitive gestures or whatnot.
Or swinging their umbrella around
like a sword,
like they were fighting something that only they can see.
Which the way the game system is designed is literally what's happening, because it is possible that your chimeric enemies and whatnot are manifesting, but they aren't seen in regular life.
So normal people are unable to perceive the chimera and other things of glamour, which are things which the changelings thrive and interact with. This means that a changeling might be walking down the street, and upon looking at the empty lot, for everyone else, it's an empty lot. It's a plot of land that no one has taken care of, and for some reason, no one wants to touch. Sort of like that corner near Ortigas, near Edsa,
the giant hole,
which has that giant hole that no one knows why is it there, right? But for a changeling, that same space, that same giant hole, might have a brilliant multi-storied castle that's guarded by the silver dragon. And interestingly, that means the castle is real, the dragon is real. But to normal people, it doesn't exist.
Yes.
It's completely unable to affect them without using their own
So
powers.
it's not even like Harry Potter, where it's hidden, or like hidden dimensions and stuff. It is literally, people just can't see it. But then because of the nature of these things, it just naturally makes people avoid them. Or maybe like in the case of the Ortigas corner thing, that notice how all their legal foibles just keep happening, and like you just can't build a building here for some reason. And why can't it be a magical castle already occupying the space?
So part of the concepts of the metaphysics in the Changeling game is that since the existence of both worlds is present in the game, even the player's perspective of what is real and what's not can play into the game. Your character might be chased down by a chimerical monster, which looks like an octopus with talons. But if you realize you're trapped and there's no way out, as a player, you can choose to have your character disbelieve that monster is there. Meaning, they embrace their mortal side so much, they're denying their fey nature. That can work in the game. That will make the character suddenly immune to the monster's attacks. But that kills their face side slightly
more, in
a permanent way. And that's a brilliant mechanic because it forces you now to make these choices. It brings all these dramatic moments and scenes we're in. Imagine if your face side had a lover and you so hated how you broke up that you denied his existence. And now you literally don't remember him because he has ceased to exist for you. But for that person, they still see you. They still recognize you. And imagine all the stories that happen when you have those intersect again. Changeling is set generally in what we call Concordia, which is North America, given a fantastic twist. Each area of North America is now what we call a duchy. And we have everything from the Kingdom of Apples,
New Yorkish area,
the Kingdom of Grass, the Kingdom of the Burning Sun, with their own dukes keeping track of things. Concordia as a whole is ruled by the High King David.
Oh, yeah.
Who is our
Arthur
type of concept. But he has gone missing. And with his disappearance, there's a civil war brewing out as many of the commoners are rising up against the nobles. And this is all happening in the modern day with no one
the wiser
of what is happening. There is as well all the political drama in the game. The Unseelie Court, the Shadow Court, which are trying
streaming, so it's not yet
to deal with things in the setting. So Changeling the Dreaming is that. It's sort of like Neverwhere, if you ever read that book. So it's sort of like Neverwhere meets Harry Potter in terms of how
David says, I get to be a High King. You are a High King. You just have seemed to have disappeared from the kingdom.
Yeah, maybe David, you are High King David, and you don't remember because your face side was forced
mortally
back to
damaged
by all your work in mathematics.
Yes,
because
you're embracing math is embracing banality, and you may have imprisoned your fairy self.
So that's
how the game works.
That's the ultimate challenge in Changeling. You have glamour and you have banality. The face side thrives in glamour, which is creative power, imagination, freedom, love, and all these higher feelings. And then you have banality, which is order, predictability, structure, math, science. And there is that feeling of, when can imagination reign? When was science take over? If you're playing a storyline wherein these freakish army of dragons have emerged from the dreaming to assault the world, maybe it's time to embrace science to shut them down. Or maybe it's time to embrace, glamour further and fight them magic
and get
against
stronger.
magic.
Yeah.
But that means knowing they have the edge.
Yeah. But again, then moving on, one of my favorite things about Changing the Dreaming is really how the magic system kind of fleshed out. So everything is fueled by glamour. So you have like a glamour pool that you can tap from. But glamour is hard to refill because glamour requires, because it's based around energies of inspiration and creativity, then more often than not, you need to somehow find mortals as dreamers,
muses,
inspire them to be creative or catch them in moments of inspiration and either gently feeding on them or taking it forcibly, which has different consequences and benefits. But because of the difficulty of acquiring glamour, then you can't just use your powers willy-nilly because almost every power requires glamour spend. Then the best way to balance things out is to perform what are called bunks.
Yes.
So all these little additional work is done to make the casting of magic easier based on the sphere. And like there's a lot of different rules. But it's basically, if you, depending on what magic shows or books you've read, it is the power of ritual and routine to sort of strengthen your spell and make it cheaper to cast in terms of glamour.
So let's say you wanted to escape the prison you're trapped in. A spell that some people might think of would be, I'll teleport out.
Yes.
In a Changeling game, there are arts that allow you to do something similar. One of the arts is called Wayfare, and it's all about movement, travel, and the like.
It jumped really high at level 1.
But with Wayfare, how then do you create the effect to escape the prison? So one way you might choose to do it is to use something called portal passage. And the basic idea of portal passage is where there was a doorway, or if there was no doorway, I shall therefore create a doorway.
Yes.
So as a changeling, if you were not being as creative as the spirit of the game expects, you might simply say, okay, I'll use Wayfair, I'll make a door, and I'll leave. But
then you'll probably pay full cost, and
that's not fun.
Yeah, it's not crazy.
So what the game encourages instead is that you come up with bunks that make it more interesting, and thus, as a reward, they bring down the cost.
Yes.
So what would be examples of bunks? You might decide, for example, oh, I know, I have a piece of chalk that I have from my pocket. I shall draw a door on the floor, and after spending, let's say, an hour drawing it as intricately as possible, I activate Wayfair, and now when I reach down, that door opens.
Yeah.
And I can now drop down to the basement level and escape. So that's what we call a bunk. And these are things players are encouraged to creatively come up with on the spot. You don't need to keep doing the same thing. In fact, the game punishes you.
Yeah, if you keep doing the same bunk, it becomes less effective.
Because it's becoming repetitive.
Routine, which makes it more banal. So, oh my God. Like I remember a game where because of this, and a lot of like Changing Magic is very sympathetic in the sense that if you want to travel to a location, then it's nice if you really know that location or you have elements from that location,
or you have many things that help you focus on that location.
Yeah, so my character had a tendency to pick up random objects all the time. I keep I'll pick up a stone, I'll grab some leaves and crush them into my pocket. I was always preemptively gathering things just in case I need it as a bunk. And it was a fun mechanism because you want to kind of bring down that power creep, and the bunks are just fun. It's like stunting in Exalted. Fight your base powers alone are fun in Exalted. You can do crazy things. It's an anime style, whatever. But then if you can accurately describe exactly how you pirouette through the air and swing your sword in an arc that forms a rainbow that flashes for a moment, and then all these things, then the game also rewards you. So it's nice, these little systems that
encourage you to make it fun for everyone
encourage
else.
more role play, encourage more thematic play, and it just pops with energy and creativity. So we super love these things.
Now, the funny thing is we've got so far, Changeling has you play different kits. I totally realized we totally skipped kits. But to keep it brief, because we still have to go to the Lost and we're only in the Dreaming right now.
Oh my god.
Kits
Lost.
are the different types of character, I
You
guess
could say classes, I guess,
Yeah.
as an analogy.
that you could play in the game. And to quickly just go through them, some of them, for example, like this pale guy in the corner is called a knocker. And his basic ability is they can practically build anything so long as you accept the fact that there will always be something wrong with what they build to some
Yeah.
extent. They're also able to literally just yell at things to start working again.
Yes.
So it's that standard, the car is going to crash and they yell at the car, no, keep driving. You're my baby. And it will keep driving even if it's run out of wheels. There's the Puku, which is, I'm having trouble finding them and showing them percentage. But the Puku are characters who can shapeshift into an animal, but only when no one's looking.
Yeah.
And they are afflicted with this curse where they can never tell the truth. So they're literally always exaggerating or messing
Yeah,
up
it's not. It's not.
details.
My first changeling character was a Puku, and it's
Mhm.
not about just lying. So really, it's a lot of time it's inaccuracy
Or
and exaggeration.
exaggeration.
So I have potentially offended many a king because I'll be like, "Oh, sir," and just by saying "sir"
Instead of your highness.
Your Highness, then I could get away with it. Then it makes it more of a lie.
The different kits allow players to target specific play styles that they might be interested in.
Or maybe characters inspired by certain books,
Yeah.
depending on what you want to do.
So if you for example, want to play roles that are knightly or paladin-like and the like, there's the troll, who have oaths and promises and super strength. If you like playing characters who are very manipulative, charismatic, and they're the beautiful ones,
Oh, we're gonna
then
be
you
she.
have the she, who are noble by birth and don't have a choice. But then if you also like being the less spotlight character, you're more wallflowering, you're more support, you're more in the background, the Buggans are a perfect way.
Buggans are awesome because they can perform tasks twice as fast if
No
nobody's
one's looking, which is perfect for players who go, I'll just be in the corner. I don't want to be focused on the scene.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then that makes them perfect. Okay, you can build something you normally take the whole day in that hour. So yeah, the kits are an amazing way that the game allows all these concepts.
So dreaming was all happiness, light, rainbows, friendship.
Mhm.
No, I mean there are still dark elements to the setting. Don't get
Yes.
me wrong, but the core aspect, because of the fact it's these creatures who are delighted by creativity and
Born of
inspiration.
creativity.
It's
It's a fantasy world.
it's a tend to be a slightly happy, fancier world,
Mm.
and then you get to
Changeling
Changeling the
the
Lost.
So
So
sadly, we only have that book in digital, so we can't show it now. But Changeling the Lost is
so when you think about it, also a lot of White Wolf. There's what became known as classic World of Darkness and the
Mhm.
New World of Darkness, and so New World of Darkness sort of like had updates and whatever for different books and tied to the year 2000. So Changeling the Lost was the NWOD equivalent of Changeling the Dreaming.
yes.
And Changeling the Lost suddenly got super dark because the main premise is that you, as a mortal being, were kidnapped by the Fae.
Mhm.
While you were kidnapped, a fetch, a simulacrum that looks exactly like you and speaks like you, was left in your place and lived your life while you were away.
Mhm.
Meantime, while you were a prisoner of Fairy, you could have been used as anything. You could have been a servant. You could have been a piece of furniture. You could have been
I should have done
a
like
pet.
Mhm.
All these things. So, whatever you were in Changeling the Lost, in
No.
the fairy world,
Go
you
ahead.
will eventually escape. You
Yes.
will get free, but you come back to your life and find that a fetch has been living your life. So what do? Do you try to reclaim your mortal life,
Mhm.
even though you have been permanently changed by the magic of the fair folk? Or do you go back and just hide in
Or find
in
new
fairy?
purpose.
Yeah, and find new life,
Mhm.
and thus you are lost.
So, given that premise, Changeling the Lost has something similar to the kits. But these, rather than focusing on interesting creative ideas, now try to represent the ways that you were imprisoned or
Yeah.
used by the gentry that held you captive.
Gentry.
If you, for example, were kept by the gentry to serve as oh, he is so beautiful, so I shall keep him and make him the light in my candelabra. Then maybe you will return as an elemental type of character made of flame, because now, having served that purpose for so long, those are the powers you have. Maybe you were, held by the huntsman, and the huntsman used you to search and hunt any other wayward fey folk that tried to escape. So in the real world, you manifest with bestial powers, and you're able to turn into a hound and track others. So it's that sort of an approach.
It's it feels like a complete 180 to the dreaming setting. Then I feel like Changing the Lost really fits in the darker themes of White Wolf.
Yes.
It really feels like a horror RPG because you literally went through this terrible, painful experience. And in that classic twist of, and you don't know how long you've been gone because time in the world of fairy moves differently in the real world.
You don't know if you should ruin the false you that has replaced your life because
they're happy.
They're happy.
More often, the default assumption is that your life just went on without you.
Because the fetch, in many ways, does capture what you would have done. So there's that. It's not you, but you could see they're a happy family. Why should you ruin that?
And you don't even look like yourself anymore.
You don't even remember what they've gone through in the many years you've been missing
because you've been totally twisted. So it's a very dark premise.
While Changeling the Dreaming is said to be the Harry Potter meets I forgot what I said earlier, but the bright and happy Disney-like world. Changeling the Lost, but Neverwhere. There you go. Changeling the Lost would be closer to Sandman or Coraline or those darker urban fantasy stories we're in.
To be fair, Neverwhere has darker sides though. But yeah, I get what you mean. Like it's definitely a more grim, serious setting. But there are caveats. Like the magic system went through a weird overhaul, which I still love. So bunks largely went away.
Yeah.
They didn't have that power. Hi, Mitch. That power for bunks. But what was nice was that
they introduced catches.
So that any particular changeling power has a catch. Like you can perform this ability, and for example, if we go back to like the Wayfarer type things, like I'll jump really high. But there are certain catches that you can do that if you do it in this way, it becomes free. I'll keep going back to my love abilities before, where I could manipulate someone's love and turn it into another love, for example, and make them love something else. But if I make them love me, then it is free. And so your powers, again, sort of like the bunks, inform gameplay.
Yes.
And encourage you to kind of embrace the tropes of your character type and thrive in that manner.
Yeah, so the game setting draws greatly from the game's premise, which is that you are all escapes from the I keep saying gentry. Was it gentry?
Yeah,
it was.
the gentry. Yeah,
the gentry that used to hold you captive. The powers are still connected to that because the powers represent the old promises and oaths that have been established long before you even existed. And that's why the catches exist, because since these promises had these catches, the magic is forced to do what it had promised to do. So when, for example, the character uses the powers to inspire love, it's because that heralds back to the magic of spring, which is all about renewed life and new flourishing romance. And him using the power to have people fall in love with him is because he's the embodiment of Pan, and he's making love and joy spread out. Just as another power which allows one to become stronger, the catch requires you to be boastful and loud and angry. And that matches perfectly with the trolls, which in tradition would boast, I will mince your bones and eat you and grind you. And that's how the game works. It makes you suddenly realize that if you find yourself using the powers relatively freely because you're embracing the catches, you're starting to sound exactly like what the gentry really wanted you to be.
Yeah, so then you're like super trapped in your archetype, or it's like you're fulfilling. Then you feel a lot closer to like classic character types in fairy stories, and that's still an interesting form of gameplay. We had a long campaign also for that, and then it was a fascinating exploration of
what myth means and
yes.
what the imagination means when it's captured by capitalism.
Yeah. And then the banality argument was still sort of there, although I felt I didn't feel it as strongly as I did in Dreaming, and that
Yes.
may be a consequence also of the story, but it's also really the nature of the sort of power set you have, and then you it the system, as much as you can theoretically tell any sort of story that you want with an RPG system, the nature of the system, the catches and whatnot, inform a certain direction that you need to take. And that's not a bad thing at all. It has a very distinct flavor, but there is definitely stronger horror potential. And then Changeling the Dreaming also had, Changing the Lost had the seasonal courts,
Yes.
which was a big thing. And funnily, for a fantasy setting, I feel like contracts were all the more important in Changeling. They've always been important. There is that classic fairy concept that their word is really law. And if you get into a contract, then it becomes a problem. I think I've always felt like Lost codified contracts better, or at least in more detail, and really made a lot of power into it.
There was a lot of you can swear in these ways, and then it manifests in this manner.
Yeah.
They also had the entitlements, which allow you to notice how you might be similar to certain changelings based on what you went through. What else? They had a lot more seemings, which were similar to the kiths. Because the kiths were then, you could say, a subset of the seemings.
Yeah.
For example, an example of a seeming might be the fairest, which are similar to the she in the Changing the Dreaming. But then the kiths of the fairest then break down to specific ones. You have the beautiful ones, which look like statues. You have the beautiful ones that are still humanoids, so they're like mannequins and the like, and so on and so forth. And it's such a... I love how the Lost was designed that you can so freely mix and match stuff to see what will work best for you.
I was a wizened, I think, right? My Jack character. Okay, so yeah, and it's just it was very, and could be we played through campaigns for both, but it on the whole just felt very different, despite having a lot of common elements, despite playing to like the tropes and stereotypes of fantasy stories and the like things involving fairy. And I think it's across our Changeling games that I really, as a player, fell in love with sort of the lawyering that comes when you deal with fairy type creatures.
Because as always in tradition or in pop fiction, the fairy are always... You have to watch what you say.
Yes.
You have to watch what they demand or what they offer. A gift is never freely given. Wordplay is important.
And the other thing, don't eat the food in the fairyland and all these things.
And this game captures that so well, captures that so much. It offers so many opportunities to explore how you might best the Ice Queen, because you got her to promise that she will only see you when you are not there. And suddenly that means she'll never find you.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that that makes the games an interesting wordplay of fun.
Yeah, and I don't know, I have great memory. And then I think a lot of, like, I played Changeling well before I read books like the Dresden Files. And I think it's because of my experience with Changeling that made me really fall in love with Dresden, especially once he started like delving more into fairy type stories, which became a really big thing in Dresden later on. And then things like 7C, when it also had its own
touch of the fairy folk.
Yeah, then oh my god, these are things I thrive in. I super super love. And so Changeling a system, one of the that's why we wanted to talk about it today, because we super love it. I always am willing to go back to it, no matter how dark Lost can be or how whimsical dreaming can seem.
Mhm.
Because I know it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good story.
And for those who might be wondering, are they
fairy duck?
are they difficult games to learn? Surprisingly, no, because both
Yeah.
use what we call the storyteller system, which basically boils down to when you look at your stats and you choose to do a certain action, you'll get the number of dots,
Attributes and skill.
and then the total number of those dots are how many 10-sided dice you will roll. And the game master will basically tell you what you need to roll better, equal to, or higher. And
Depending if dreaming or
yeah, and the number of successes
the
then
success number is different.
determines how well you perform. And it's that's it. That's the basic fractal of the system that's used in the entire game. Whether it's doing magic, whether it's sneaking around,
Shooting a gun, running, hiding, using a computer.
so it's not a game where you have to learn so many systems.
Yeah.
It's just a game wherein, oh, I want to now start doing this more. Then maybe you'll read that section, but you'll notice it still follows the basic dice rules.
Yeah, and just try to figure out like this like sort of sphere of magic that you want to explore in, or what aspects of your character you want to grow. Dreaming had a very like plug and play magic system, which I really liked, and I kind of drew inspiration for another game. Lost, exploring the catches of your powers in Lost became the really fun thing, and like as dark as it was, but then as you start playing to stereotype because you're following catches because hey, it's free use of your power.
Yes.
Then you kind of really get into these kind of comical, not quite caricature, but kind of getting there moments because it's like the ultimate in narrative niche protection, I guess. If to coin a phrase, it's super fun.
So, Changeling the Lost and Changeling the Dreaming, games that we truly love, and we hope that you will actually find an opportunity to try and play them. Books are available online. I think actual hardcover books might be available in some areas in print on demand.
Depending, but I guess Drive-Thru RPG is still your best friend for like getting PDF copies of books.
But the opportunity is there, and the range of how you can explore them is just immense. They're not limited to just modern day game sessions. There are many supplements that allow you opportunities to explore it in other ways as well.
And then like for caveat, there's like the main Changeling the Dreaming system, which has a lot of supplementary books, and then there was Changeling the Lost, which has a lot of supplementary books. But then there is also Changeling the Dreaming 20th edition,
which is the book we are using as reference.
Yes, which is a beautiful combination of many things, and it's still not everything. I mean, like because of the sheer number of source books that were released for the Dreaming era, it condenses a lot, but it's still like a starting point for more things.
If you could buy only one book for Dreaming, get the 20th edition collection because it has almost all the other supplements already in this.
Yeah, book. A lot of the other like variations on kits and whatnot. That's all baked in there. But then, yeah, if you want that darker story, then Lost is the core book is still great.
Be aware that Lost has 2 editions. The first edition, Changeling the Lost system, is what we really love and are familiar with. The second edition, Lost system, has tweaks to the system. They're, for me, a bit more complicated, and I still favor first edition more, but I've heard some good things as well of the second edition.
So it really depends on what you're looking for, and then maybe we'll get to play sometime in a post-quarantine lockdown world.
Unless you're just banal.
Ooh. And then in case you have no imagination, then play with your computer, whatever.
But that's 30 minutes, and we had a lot of fun. We hope you'll join us again next time.
Oops, captions. Yeah, so if you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, then fill out the form at bit.ly, Baduy Pride Ideas. I think more and more our Friday episodes are definitely going to be more chill, like night out episodes. So if you have specific ideas for that and things that you would want to talk about as we drink together, feel free to send those in. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobi No Shade, and RG Cynico. You didn't see my thoughts. And then,
you can also check out our blog. That's baduypride.com for our previous episodes and other stuff.
Yay. So, of course, feel free to continue the conversation in the comments below. Let us know what you think about what you've heard about the Changeling RPG systems. Do you think you want to explore the dreaming more? Or do you think you want to somehow succeed and rise above your trauma of being one of the lost? Subscribe for notifications, whether on Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss out on our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And this is Baduy Pride. Hey, thanks for joining. Night.
Good night.